Hello and welcome to our tutorial. Today we are diving into key area of international finance, understanding how to choose and apply ICC rules for demand guarantees and standby letter of credit. We will be covering how to select appropriate rules, why it is essential to follow established processes, specific ICC rules for different instruments, and how these rules impact legal and operational aspects of guarantees. In most countries, the decision to apply ICC rules to demand guarantees and standby letter of credit rests with the issuer or guarantor, which means not with local law. Here is how the process typically works. Often the applicant presents a draft guarantee or standby letter of credit that's been discussed with the beneficiary. If this draft does not include the right rules, the issuer should not make changes unilaterally. Instead, they should consult the applicant for approval. Why? Making changes without the applicant's consent could breach the applicant's contract with the beneficiary. It could also breach the agreement between the issuer and applicant, which will be leading to issues like refusal to indemnify or even claims for damages. A unilateral changes to the draft instrument without authority from the applicant may result in the applicant's being in breach of its underlying contract with the beneficiary. For example, if the terms of the draft instrument have been agreed as part of the underlying contract. Even if the unilateral changes would not cause the applicant to be breached in underlying contract, the unilateral changes may be a breach of the express or implied terms of the relationship between the applicant and issuer. In either case, the unilateral changes may give the applicant the right to refuse to indemnify the issuer if the issuer has to pay a demand under the instrument. It may even give the applicant the right to claim damages from the issuer if the applicant has suffered a loss as a result of the issuer's action. Which rules to choose? When selecting rules, the type of instrument being issued is the main consideration. The primary factor in your choice should be the type of instrument being issued. You should aim to use the rules that are most appropriate for the type of the instrument. However, sometimes you may see instances of issuers using the rules in which they are most familiar, rather than the rules that are most appropriate for the type of the instrument. If you are unfamiliar with a set of rules, it is better to take time to study and understand these rules, rather than simply use other rules which you are familiar. Remember your options. First one, uniform rules for demand guarantees. Second, international standard practice. Third, uniform customs and practice for documentary credits. When selecting rules, the type of instrument being issued is the main consideration. URDG 758 is ideal for demand guarantees, while it is sometimes used for standby letter of credit, but it is not suitable for commercial documentary letter of credit. ISB 98, which is perfect for standby letter of credit. It may also apply to demand guarantees, but it is not suitable for documentary credits. UCP 600. This is designed for commercial documentary letter of credit, but it is sometimes used for standby letter of credit. However, using UCP 600 for demand guarantees is generally discouraged. Uniform Rules for Demand Guarantee 2010 Revision. ICC publication number 758, generally referred to as URDG 758. These rules are intended for demand guarantees. On rare occasions, these rules may also be used for standby letter of credit, although this is not reflected in the language of the rules. These rules are not appropriate for commercial letter of credit, as we have discussed earlier. International Standby Practices, which is ISP 1998 edition. UCP publication number 590, generally referred to as ISP 98. These rules are primarily intended for use with standby letter of credit. They may also use with demand guarantees but are not appropriate for commercial documentary letter of credit. Uniform Customs and Practice for Documentary Credit 2007 revision. ICC publication number 600, generally referred to as UCP 600. These rules are primarily intended to commercial documentary letter of credit but can be used for standby letter of credit. The rules are not designed to be used in demand guarantees. You might occasionally see demand guarantees incorporating UCP 600, but this is not a recommended practice. Rule application and operation. Let's talk about how these rules work in practice. The ICC rules only apply if they are explicitly included in the text of the instrument. For example, a demand guarantee might say, this guarantee is subject to URDG 758. These rules are not part of the law but will be recognized by court as part of the contract between the issuer and beneficiary. All these set of rules are contractual rules. This means that the rules apply to the demand guarantee or standby letter of credit only if the parties choose to apply them. With each set of rules, this choice need to be shown by means of express incorporation of the rules in the text of the instrument. In SWIFT messages, this incorporation may be shown in abbreviation of the forms such as URDG 758. It is important to understand that these rules are not imposed by law, but they will be recognized by law. As an example, think of like buying a train ticket. The terms printed on the ticket may not be the law, but they will outline the right and obligation of both the railway company and passengers. If a problem occurs, like a cancellation, the court can refer to these terms in dispute. The ICC rules serve a similar purpose in demand guarantee and standby letter of credit. The ICC rules incorporated into demand guarantees or standby letter of credit work in much the same way. They are not part of the law, but they are part of the undertaking made by the issuer in favor of the beneficiary. They surround the right and obligation of all parties to the instrument and show what each party must do in operating the instrument. If there is a dispute, the court that has jurisdiction over the dispute will look at the text of the instrument and the applicable rules to make its decision. Although the rules cover the main steps which arises in day-to-day operations of the instrument, they will not cover every issue which may arise, such as the fraudulent demand or impact of a sanction regulation. The court may then have to apply its own local law or regulation. Clarification of the application of rules is often required by a new edition of ICC rules come into effect. For example, UCP 600 is replaced by UCP 500 and URDG 758 is replaced by URDG 458. Two common questions that often arises are: do instruments that incorporate a former edition of the rules and that were issued prior to the relevant date become automatically subject to the new edition from the date that the new edition come into effect? The answer is no. Once the instrument is issued incorporating a set of rules, the chosen edition of the rules govern the instrument for the life of the instrument, even if no edition come into effect in the meantime. Second question: is it permissible to incorporate an old edition of the rules into the instrument, notwithstanding that a new edition has come into effect before the instrument is issued? The answer is yes, but this is not recommended because the old rules will not reflect the latest development in international practice. In short, each version of ICC rules remains effective for an instrument's lifetime. So, if a demand guarantee was issued under UCP 500 before UCP 600 was introduced, it will remain governed by UCP 500. It's also possible to use an outdated version, but it's generally advised to apply the latest version. Now let's see what is amending rules. As the rules amended by contractual incorporation, they can be modified by the test of the instrument, so as modification can be made in two ways. First one, excluding the specific rules. Example, stating Article XYZ of URDG 758 shall not apply. Like, there may be an express amendment or exclusion of specific rules. Second, adding provisions that adjust the rules, like specifying a shorter response time. The instrument may contain an express provision that modifies a particular rule, but without referring to that rule. For example, a provision in standard letter of credit subject to ISP 98 that the issuer shall examine and pay a complying demand within 3 business days modifies the rule 5.01a of ISP 98 regarding the time within which the issuer must give notice of dishonor. Note that URDG 758 Subarticle 15C set out express condition for the exclusion of Subarticle 15A or Subarticle 15B relating to statement of breach in the underlying relationship. You should take care when amending the rules to ensure that the instrument, when read with the amendment of rules, provided a clear statement as to the right and obligation of each party. Unclear drafting will often lead to confusion and disputes. Before amending the rules, remember that the rules have been drafted to create balance between the respective interests of the parties. A substantial amendment could upset the balance and lead to rejection of the instrument or subsequent problems. Some specific rules are also fundamental to the operation of the instrument that can amend or exclusion of the specific rules could render the instrument workable. Finally, do not confuse amendment of the rules with amendment of the terms of the demand guarantee or standby letter of credit. Now let's see what is in Article 15. Article 15 discusses about requirements for demand. A demand under a guarantee shall be supported by such other documents as the guarantee specifies, and in any event by statement by the beneficiary indicating in what respect the applicant is in breach of its obligation under the underlying relationship. This statement may be in the demand or in separate signed document accompanying or identifying the demand. So, Article 15b says, a demand under the counter guarantee shall be in any event be supported by a statement by the party to whom the counter guarantee was issued, indicating that such party has receiving a complying demand under the guarantee or counter guarantee issued by that party. This statement may be in demand or in a separate signed document accompanying or identifying the demand. As we discussed, Article 15C says, the requirement for a supporting statement in paragraph A or B of this article applies except to the extent that the guarantee or counter guarantee expressly exclude this statement. Exclusion terms such as the supporting statement under Article 15A or B is excluded satisfy the requirement of this paragraph. So as we discussed, URDG 758 subarticle 15C set out expresses conditions that the exclusion of the subarticle 15A and Article B relating to the statement of breach of the underlying relationship. As a bonus, let's discuss Article D also. Neither the demand nor the supporting statement may be dated before the date when the beneficiary is entitled to present the demand. Any other document may be dated before that date. Neither the demand nor the supporting statement nor any other document may be dated later than the date of its presentation. Now let's see Rule 5 of ISP 98. Rule 501. Timely notice of dishonor. A notice of dishonor must be given within time after presentation of the document which is not unreasonable. That means is given within 3 business days is deemed to be not unreasonable and beyond 7 business days is deemed to be unreasonable. Whether the time within which the notice is given unreasonable does not depend upon imminent deadline for presentation. The time for calculation when notice of dishonor must be given begins with the business day following the business day of presentation. Unless standby letter of credit expressly state the shortened time within which the notice of dishonor must be given, the issuer has no obligation to accelerate its examination of the presentation. Now, guarantees with no rules. No standby letter of credit issued in international trade and commerce incorporate rules, usually ISP 98 or UCP 600. But many demand guarantees incorporate no rules at all, unless the test of the guarantee is expanded to cover them expressly. Many points that arise in day-to-day guarantee operations remain unclear in a demand guarantee that incorporate no rules. Confusion and disputes may follow. For example, how can the guarantee be amended? How quickly does a bank have to examine a presentation and pay? What if the guarantee need to be extended? Or what happened if the bank is closed on the last day of presentation? There is an additional problem with assignments. All the ICC rules contain restrictions on the transfer of rights under the instrument but allow for an assignment of proceeds. If a demand guarantee has no rules and if the test of the guarantee itself says nothing about assignment, local law may allow the beneficiary to assign the right to make demand without the prior consent of the guarantor. Whereas, all the guarantor will receive the notice of assignment followed by the demand from the third party that it does not know. The guarantor is not only faced with the difficulty of identifying who the person entitled to make a demand is, and they may also have to carry out additional due diligence on the assignee. It is possible to try to cover all these issues in the test of the guarantee, but negotiating the test then take up more time. The instrument itself becomes more complex and it is difficult to achieve the balance between the interest of the parties as set by the rules. The use of demand guarantees without any applicable rule is never recommended, but sometimes the issuing bank has no choice. The decision not to incorporate any rules into the demand guarantee comes from the applicant or beneficiary. They may have used a set of tests over many years without reference to any rules, and they are not ready to change. The guarantor may equally reluctant to upset the customer by insisting to incorporating rules. The guarantor can find themselves in difficulty if they incorporating rules without the customer's consent. Also, the guarantor can find themselves in difficulty if they incorporate rules without the customer's consent. The solution to this problem is dialogue and education. There is no point in waiting until the customer sends the bank an instruction to issue a guarantee using a set of tests. Then it will be too late to start a conversation on whether to incorporate rules in the guarantee. It is much better to raise the issue of applicable rules at the time of negotiating facility for the customer. If the customer is reluctant to agree, offer the customer information and training on the rules. This can enhance the bank-customer relationship and make guarantee operations smoother and more efficient. Why use of URDG 758 for demand guarantees? URDG 758 was crafted for demand guarantees, making it a reliable choice. It includes model forms and clauses to streamline drafting and serves as a clear indication that the instrument is an independent demand guarantee rather than a surety ship. Using URDG 758 for demand guarantees provide advantages to all parties in that it is the only set of rules specifically designed for demand guarantees. The rules confirm the essential elements of the demand guarantee as an irrevocable independent undertaking which is effective when issued. The drafting group of URDG 758 was appointed jointly by ICC Banking Commission and the ICC Commission or Commercial Law and Practice. It was supported by a consultative basis on the ICC Task Force on Guarantees, which had been created by ICC in 2003 to monitor international demand guarantee practice. This arrangement allows a broad range of experience from both bank and commercial users to be taken into account. In particular, the drafting group was able to consider and build on the operation of the previous version of URDG 458, which had been in effect since 1992. Several points that were not covered in URDG 458 or that lacked clarity were addressed and improved in URDG 758. One specific advantage of incorporating URDG 758 in demand guarantees when combined with the use of the model guarantee and clause published in URDG booklet that it is a positive indication of the parties intended that guarantee will be independent demand guarantee, not a short-issue guarantee. Advantages of ISB 98 for standby letter of credit. ISB 98 was created specifically for standby letters, addressing specific elements that UCP 600 does not cover, such as extend or pay clause and requirement for demand forms. Using ISB 98 minimizes confusion and ensures the standby letter of credit functions as an independent undertaking. Now let's discuss about International Standard Demand Guarantee Practice or ISDGP. One other advantage of using URDG 758 for demand guarantees is that the International Standard Demand Guarantee Practice or ISDGP, which was issued by ICC Banking Commission in March 2021 as a companion document to URDG 758. ISDGP provides guidance on the operation of demand guarantees and counter guarantees that are subject to URDG 758. It supplements but does not amend URDG 758. If you are familiar with documentary credit, you will know UCP 600 is supplemented by International Standard Banking Practice for the examination of documents under UCP 600. Likewise, ISDGP provides a similar function for demand guarantees incorporating URDG 758, except that it covers the full life cycle of demand guarantees rather than just the examination of documents presented under the instrument. There is no start date for operation of ISDGP. As it is not a separate set of rules, it simply supplements and explains the URDG. Therefore, where a guarantee is subject to the URDG, the ISDGP automatically applies without the need for any further reference, even if the guarantee was issued before March 2021. Advantage of using ISB 98 for standby letter of credit. ISB 98 was created specifically for standby letters of credit, addressing specific elements that UCP 600 does not cover, such as extend or pay clause and the requirement for demand forms. Using ISB 98 minimizes confusion and ensures the standby letter of credit functions as an independent undertaking. Standby letter of credit are usually governed either ISB 98 or by UCP 600. The advantages of using ISB 98 is that rules are prepared by Institute of International Banking Law and Practice, that is IIBLB, specifically for the use of standby letter of credit as an independent guarantee, whereas UCP 600 rules are primarily intended for use of documentary credit as a primary payment mechanism in the international sale of goods. For example, UCP 600 Article 19 to 27 go into great detail in the requirement for original transport documents, but those provisions are almost always irrelevant to the documentary requirements of the standard letter of credit. Conversely, ISB 98 covers topic on which UCP 600 is silent, such as extent or pay, the form of demand, and transfer by operation of law. Although the scope of confusion between standard letter of credit and suretyship guarantee is generally less than that it is between demand guarantees and suretyship guarantees. It is better to avoid any doubt by using clear drafting in standard letter of credit. The use of IABLB specimen forms and the express incorporation of ISB 98 will be positive indication of the parties' intent that the standard letter of credit will be independent undertaking and not a suretyship guarantee. Now, comparing ISB 98 and UCP 600. While UCP 600 is sometimes used for standard letter of credit, ISB 98 is generally more appropriate because it addresses operational points specific to standbys. Familiarizing yourself with ISB 98 can help produce instruments that operate effectively. Now let's see UCP 600. We have seen URDG 758 is designed to be incorporated demand guarantees and that ISB 98 is designed to incorporate standard letter of credit. Why does that leave UCP 600? In practice, many standard letter of credit, particularly in oil industries, are issued subject to UCP 600. However, there are certain aspects of UCP 600 that are irrelevant to the operation of standard letter of credit. Conversely, there are many issues on which additional guidelines may be required for the operation of the standard letter of credit. This guidance is to be found in ISB 98 but not in UCP 600. Although many banks outside USA continue to use UCP 600 in standard letter of credit, it appears to arise more out of the uncertainty and lack of knowledge about ISB 98 rather than a positive decision on UCP 600 is better than ISB 98. Again, time taken to read the understand new set of rules can provide the guarantor or issuer with another option and the ability to produce an instrument that can be operated more efficiently and which fewer problems are likely to arise. This is therefore important to understand ISB 98 as well as UCP 600. There is an alternative source of rules for demand guarantee and standard letter of credit. The United Nations Convention on International Trade Law, which is known as UNCITRAL, adopted by Convention on Independent Guarantees by Standard Letter of Credit on 11th of December 1995. The convention recognized the independent status of the demand guarantee and standard letter of credit in international trade, and it goes further than URDG 758 and ISB 98 in that it covers the issue of fraudulent and abusive demands. The convention may be treated as the law applicable to international demand guarantee and standard letter of credit in all the countries that have ratified to the convention. The convention allowed the incorporation of rules such as URDG 758 or ISB 98, and it may therefore be used on its own or in conjunction with ICC rules. As of 2022, 8 countries are parties to the convention. If you are issuing or advising or receiving a demand guarantee or standard letter of credit that is potentially subject to the law of those countries, you should consider taking legal advice on the status of the convention in relation to the instrument. Thanks for watching the tutorial on choosing and applying ICC rules for demand guarantees and standby letter of credit. I hope you found this guide useful. Remember to choose the appropriate rules for your instrument type and consult the latest ICC publications. For more insight on international finance, make sure to like, subscribe and stay tuned.